A good way to work with materials, identify them or define their property is to study how light interacts with them. This study of light interaction with materials is called spectroscopy. Spectroscopy examines how light behaves in the target and recognizes material based on their different spectral signatures. These spectral signatures can be identified from the spectrum of the material. Spectrum describes the amount of light in different wavelengths. It shows how much light is emitted, reflected or transmitted from the target. To put it in short, the spectrum tells how much of a certain color the light contains. The usual way to present spectrum is a graph on a scale of intensity and wavelength. Spectral signatures can be compared to fingerprints. Just like fingerprints can be used to identify a person, spectral signatures can be used to identify materials. Let's examine the reflected light in more detail. To study the light, one needs an instrument called a spectrometer. It's an instrument that splits the incoming light into a spectrum. In this example, the light going through a spectrometer is reflected and the result is therefore called a reflectance spectrum. Measuring the reflectance spectra is the most common way to use hyperspectral imaging. Hyperspectral imaging uses an imaging spectrometer to collect spectral information. This device is also called a hyperspectral camera. With hyperspectral camera, we are measuring thousands of hundreds of thousands of spectra instead of a single spectrum. The collected spectra are used to form an image of the target in a way that each image pixel includes a complete spectrum. By doing this, we are able to get answer to question: what is the material based on the spectrum and where is it based on the location? We can pick any position from the target to get that information. This means a big amount of accurate information. The data that hyperspectral imaging provides is called a data cube, because the hyperspectral data is actually three-dimensional. We will use a book example to understand what hyperspectral imaging provides. We will introduce what kind of data hyperspectral imaging provides. Hyperspectral camera is used to collect a data cube, as we told before. In our example, we compared the data cube to a book. Let's discover how this differs from the data and images from other types of cameras. Digital or smartphone cameras shoots the target in three colors: red, green and blue, to match the human vision. These colors, which in fact a broad wavelength channels, are equal to the amount of information that is recorded and the book is going to have. The result is a small book or leaflet with just 3 pages. The color image that we can see with our eye is the combination of the pages that we see on the cover page of the book. With hyperspectral camera, our target is recorded from tens to thousands of narrow color channels, meaning wavelengths. The amount of wavelengths fully depends on what type of hyperspectral camera is being used. In this example, the target is recorded in 220 wavelengths throughout the target area. Again, this is the amount of information that our book will have. Every wavelength is presented as a page of the book. As you compare to the previous, this book is much bigger and contains much more detailed information about our target. In most of the cases, hyperspectral camera collects information also from the wavelengths invisible from the human vision. The book that we see is constructed from many wavelengths. As I said, every page of the book presents its own information. By combining different pages, we are able to process different qualities of our target, such as possible plant diseases that are infecting the leaves or the amount of water that the leaf contains. We are also able to choose any point of the leaf from the book cover and obtain its full, accurate and continuous spectrum. This requires that we use all the information of that specific point in every page of the book. We sort of drill a slice of the entire book in order to get the spectral information. So, hyperspectral cameras measures the target in every wavelength that is located, and the hyperspectral camera spectral range creating a full spectrum for each pixel of the target. The collected full spectral information is versatile for analysis, detection and identification of various materials and compounds, and all with just one measurement. We will introduce how to successfully record data with a hyperspectral camera. We explain what are the key elements that need to be taken into consideration and why. You will need a hyperspectral camera, proper illumination and a reflectance reference. That in most cases is a white reference. These are the three most important elements that affect the data. The spectra you get from your target depends on the camera you use. There are many different hyperspectral cameras with different wavelength ranges. If the same target is recorded with two hyperspectral cameras that have different wavelength ranges, the acquired spectra show different spectral features. Different materials and compounds have spectral features in different wavelengths, and one hyperspectral camera won't bring a solution to every problem. For example, these three minerals have spectral features in different wavelength ranges. Flat features do not include identifying information, whereas the peak and shapes actually give us the right information. That is why it is important to select a camera with an ideal wavelength range for your target. Since hyperspectral cameras measure the light reflected from the target, it is important to use the proper type of illumination. The target should be evenly illuminated and light should have a spectral response that matches the hyperspectral camera's wavelength range. The most typical light sources are halogen lights and sunlights. In some cases, LED lights and thermal sources can be used. In conventional digital imaging, the photographer needs to take the color balance into consideration. This is often done using a gray card. In the same way, the effect of the environment vary in hyperspectral imaging. That is why the recorded data needs to be balanced with the information from the reflectance reference, which is normally a white reference. The white reference can be, for example, a panel that is included in the image measuring the reflectance reference. Corrects also the difference in spectral response between hyperspectral cameras. In addition to the reflectance reference, we also take the dark reference into account. It collects the effect of the camera sensor variations over time. In some hyperspectral camera products, dark reference is collected automatically, others require user actions. In the end, we will get the reflection spectra from the target by collecting data with references with a calculation procedure called reflected transformation. This calculation makes the data recorded in different environments comparable. We will introduce how different hyperspectral cameras work. There are different ways to collect hyperspectral data. Most of these products are line scan hyperspectral cameras. They collect full spectral and spatial information of the target line by line. Sometimes the term push broom is used for the same technology. The key components of a line scan hyperspectral camera are an imaging spectrograph, a grayscale camera, and an objective. All of these components must be optimized for the camera's wavelength range. When recording a normal black and white image, you will need the objective and the camera. The objective predicts the target to the camera sensor where the image is recorded. To compare this with our book illustration, the result is a one-page black and white leaflet. Once the imaging spectrograph is added, we can record hyperspectral data, and let's examine the imaging spectrograph in more detail. The imaging spectrograph contains an input slit, a culminating optics, a dispersive unit, and a focusing lens. The objective forms an image to the input slit. The input slit limits the incoming information through it. The information passes only from a single line. Because of this component, these cameras are called as line scan cameras. Input slit is required to measure accurate spectra. The narrower the slit, the more accurate spectra you get. The culminating optics directs and culminates the light from the slit to the dispersive unit. With the dispersive unit, the incoming light spreads into the spectra. The focusing lens is needed to focus the image to the grayscale camera. The grayscale camera is used to measure the intensity of the dispersed light. Now we have a spectral image, and this image, every row contains intensity information from a different wavelength. Together, the rows provide the full spectrum so that each column contains the spectrum from a single location. This is how the technology can provide answer to all our questions. What based on the spectrum and where based on the location. The image of the whole target is recorded line by line with this hyperspectral camera, and this is how line scan hyperspectral cameras work. The image lines together provides the final spectral image that is also called as the data cube. High data quality and fast operation makes this technology suitable for different environments.